The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge on key business topics and specialist areas. Joining me today is BizSmart Select member Stuart Avis from Audacious Creative Communications. Before we start today's webinar, can I ask you to use the question mark function on your screen to post any questions that you may have for Stuart, and he will answer them all at the end of the session. Okay, thank you very much, and over to you, Stuart.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Just going to get myself set up here. Okay, at the end of my last webinar back in March, someone asked a question that really got me thinking, and it was this: how can smaller businesses differentiate themselves to compete against larger competitors? And it's something that I don't know how well I answered it at the time, but it really got me thinking, and I've been doing quite a lot of work on that over the last 6 months. So when I was asked to kind of step into this at quite short notice, I thought, well, I'll do a presentation on this and maybe share some of the thoughts and some of my thinking over the last sort of 6 months. I hope you find this useful. So we'll crack on. This is where I want to go for this afternoon. Really just kind of want to have a look at the scenario in which ourselves as a business, and probably you find yourselves in as well. Just want to have a quick pause for thought to ask quite a critical question. Then look at 5 ings. We'll come on to that a little bit later, and then just kind of close after a short summary. So that's kind of where we're going for this afternoon. So this is the scenario. This green blob represents Audacious Creative. There's myself and Josh working in that. This may well represent your business. It's 1 or 2 of you working in a fairly small environment with a fairly small group of suppliers and support people. So it might be business coaches, marketing consultants, but also people that whose services you buy in to offer to your clients, like print brokers, copywriters, and maybe an accountant, people who can help you run your business and their activities. This represents our local competition. This is the biggest business of its kind that I found in the immediate region. They have a staff of 50, and they have a very large supply base, and they buy in lots of services from lots of bigger agencies. So it really is a David and Goliath situation, and this may well represent your business too. Fairly small, only 1 or 2 of you working there with a fairly small group of kind of suppliers, and you're trying to compete against a really big business that does a similar kind of thing to you. You've got lots of employees, lots of staff, much bigger business, and probably work with bigger agencies and other companies to help them run theirs. So this orange circle represents the finite number of people that need your service. We all operate in an environment in which not 100% of the population need our services for obvious reasons. So this circle kind of just represents that finite number of people that could potentially use your service. There are lots of companies, and you're all competing for the same business. Some will be smaller than yours, and some will obviously be bigger. And most of your competitors, and this is kind of what makes them competition, will offer a similar service to you. And it just comes down to a matter of scale. So you might not be the smallest fish in your pond, but you're probably not going to be the biggest either. So the question is, well, how can you differentiate yourself just to compete against those larger competitors? But even don't forget, you're still competing against businesses that are smaller than you as well. So how can you effectively compete? Obviously, some industries and some sectors are far more crowded than others. But I think some of the principles that we're going to look at this afternoon, I hope, are still true, regardless of your industry, regardless of your sector. So I want to just ask a question at this moment in time. Is this scenario a problem, or is it an opportunity? It's very easy to see it 1 of 2 ways, isn't it? The problem is, oh my goodness, there's these giant competitors out there. They kind of just dominate the market in my local region or wherever or whatever space you inhabit. They seem to suck up all the publicity. They're the ones that get noticed all the time. I can't compete with them. I'm just going to kind of just, sort of carve my own little niche out here and just kind of struggle along as best I can. Or you could see the situation as an opportunity. Just think about the local small high street grocer and that is doing very well, but then Tesco's moves in 5 minutes down the road. The small local guy cannot compete on the scale or probably even the pricing structure of the big supermarket. But actually it is an opportunity for them to niche, for them to exploit the local market in a way that Tesco simply can't, or the other big competitor. So how you see this will actually kind of determine your plan of actions. Is this a problem or an opportunity? Winston Churchill very famously said, a pessimist sees a difficulty in every opportunity, but an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. So whether you're a pessimist or an optimist, can I suggest actually you try to find the opportunities in the problems that lie ahead rather than just trying to fight your way through a problem. It's something we all fall into the trap of, and I'm guilty of that as anyone. So I kind of just want to move forward, and I want to look at 5 ings: understanding, planning, branding, serving, and competing. And we're going to use this chap here to kind of help visualize some of the things some of our thoughts and some of the kind of principles that I'm going to talk about. So understanding, planning, branding, serving, and competing. So understanding, there are 3 things in any business that you need to understand. And if you've been working with a business coach, such as your core advisor, if you're part of the BizSmart program, then you'll probably have a handle on these 3 things anyway, but it's good just to recap. So it's critical to understand, firstly, you, your business, and your offering. What is your why? Why do you do what you do in the way that you do it? It's not just about trying to explain to people what you do, but actually, why do you do that? And then what is it you actually do? Sometimes people will only see you as offering one thing, whereas you may offer a range of services. So I often get asked, do you? So if we're doing a website, for instance, I'll say, don't suppose you know anyone who designs logos, do you? Well, we do, but because we haven't talked about that, they don't know. So what is it you actually do, and how are you communicating your offering? What is your value proposition? What is your core ethos, your founding principles that actually make you you and help you stand out from the crowd? And then lastly, where does your best business come from? It's a really important question. We'll probably get lots of business from lots of different ways. Actually, where does the really good stuff come from? And maybe there's an opportunity to exploit that avenue far more than you're doing at the moment. So once you've understood you and your offering, the next thing to do is then understand your customer and your audience, both your existing audience and then your target audience. So who are they and where are they? So both the existing client and then your potential target audience as well. What is your perfect customer profile? If you don't have one, I really recommend that you do. It's a really great thing to have and just to keep on coming back to as well. And we'll filter out some of those kind of trouble clients that actually you wish sometimes you hadn't taken on because they're really hard work. So they don't fit into that perfect customer profile. And then lastly, how would your clients describe you, your business, or your service? One thing I often do is get feedback from my clients because their understanding of what I do helps me refine and hone how I communicate. And sometimes what they see isn't kind of what I feel, and that's a really interesting conversation to have. So once you have understood you've understood your audience, you then need to understand your competition. So who are they and where are they? So names, business addresses, all that kind of stuff, all that's critical data. Also, where are they? Are they close to you geographically? Do they have a very big online presence? So they're not necessarily just kind of down the road, but actually they're all over Facebook, for instance, or Twitter. Is their competition real or perceived? Now, this is an interesting question because the real competition is someone who offers a similar service to you, to the same kind of people, and you're both vying for the same kind of business. But perceived competition is, I'll give you a perfect example. There's a guy I know offers a very similar service to me, and I could see him as a threat. but actually he works in such a niche market, and one that I have no interest in working in at all, that actually far more than a threat, it's actually an opportunity, because he can get me in some of his clients and I can get him in some of mine, and actually we work really well together. So he works in an industry that I don't want to get into, but actually we end up working together very well. So is your competition real, or is it perceived, and who perceives that? So all you then also need to think about, well, what do you do that's similar, and what do you do that is different? So what differentiates you from your competition? Really critical to understand some of these things. I mean, just in the business centre that I'm in, there are 8 other creative designing companies, but actually there's enough work for each of us, and we all do things in slightly different ways. So yes, we're technically competitors, but it doesn't feel like that most of the time. So once you've got your understanding, the next thing to do is then think about your planning. Now, again, if you had your business coach or your growth, your core advisor working with you, you'll probably have these 2 things already well on the way, if not done. One, your marketing strategy. What are your 2 or 3 primary routes to market? I.e., where do you get your best business from? For us as a business, we have one route to market, and that's networking. I identified that very early on as I wanted to get most of my business, and we get 98% of our business through networking. And we do that intelligently, but we're strategic about the networks that we're involved with. How does your audience prefer to communicate? Are they online? Are they social? Is it face-to-face? Is it email? Is it phone calls? How does your audience prefer to communicate? Communicate in that way, and create a strategy for communicating to those different audiences. What spaces do they inhabit? So it's not the social spaces, but where do they network? If you're looking to get into charities, for instance, well, where do charities network? Where do schools go to share information about suppliers? How do they talk to each other? Where do they share that information? Can you get into those kind of environments to begin to promote yourself and deliver a message? But also what tone of voice or language is most appropriate. There's no point in talking jargon to people who just don't understand what you're talking about. And equally, there's no point in being very informal if a formal language or formal tone is what they need. So think about the tone of the language that you can deliver your content and your messaging to. It's actually really important, and one I think a lot of people miss. Secondly, is this your growth strategy? Where are you now? Where have you been? And where do you want to get to? And what is your route to growth? And how are you going to get there? There's obviously many different ways to get from A to B, but actually, how are you going to get there? And what stands in your way? What obstacles, what opportunities potentially lie in your way? And how are you going to resolve those to actually begin to fulfill your ambitions and your hopes and dreams for your business? Then branding. We are a creative design agency, so for us branding is critical. But branding isn't about the creative, it isn't about the nitty-gritty of what colour the logo is, although that is really important. But it's this, your role as a business owner is to enhance how people feel about who you are and why you do what you do, far more than telling people what you do. When you go networking, don't just major on the this is what we do, but it's try to incorporate some of that why and the how and the who you are. Get across your personality, communicate yourselves effectively. Words are really powerful. Work with a great copywriter. I know 2 or 3 if you want some good contacts into there. Refine, hone, tweak and refine again your core messaging until it's perfect. And then test that core message with trusted clients. Does it make sense? Do they get it? I've got a very, very good trusted friend who sent me over her thoughts for her new strapline, and I didn't understand it. It made sense to her, but it didn't make sense to me, and I know her business very well. So just test out some of your thoughts with trusted people. Images. Take time to choose and use powerful images that back up and accentuate your core message. Images are really important, and we don't use them at our peril, or we use the wrong images at our peril. And then media, it's basically message and method. Say what you want to say, but in the right way, and deliver it in the right way to the people you're trying to communicate to. There's no point in delivering flyers to people who are mostly online. I know it's a silly example, but you'd be surprised how many times I have conversations with prospective clients who want flyers done, and most their prospects are online. So just think about the message and the method and the delivery of all of that. But you need to use your web, your social, etc. It's really important. This is just an example of how to use words and images. This is a draft design of my original website. Well, actually, sort of 2 or 3 versions ago. Lots of words, not many images. The colours are about right, but I was still trying to work through what words I used to communicate how I felt about my business and what I wanted people to understand. But having evolved through that and thought through that and wrestled with that and tried to refine and hone and tweak and refine and hone and tweak endlessly, this is now what we've come up with. So our website now has 3 main images on the main slider. We are audacious, and what I try to do is say, well, what is audacious and what is creative? So I've tried to find ways of defining how I understand those words and then find images to talk about that. So we're bold and brave. We connect your audience to your brand in ways that inspire them to action. We are inventive. We're unrestrained. We're imaginative. We're creative. Our creativity is driven by passion and soul, helping you communicate powerfully and effectively. And then we are audacious, creative. That whole thing about moving forwards. It's sometimes a little bit sort of riskily, but actually it always works. And since we've started using those images, people have really responded very powerfully to those. And we've won some great business on the back of just thinking through good wording and good imagery. So we've looked at understanding, we looked at planning, looked at branding. So now this is kind of where it really comes into the kind of nitty-gritty. Customer service. The bigger the business, the harder they have to work at great customer service. But you're smaller, you know your clients really well, and you'll probably have a really good relationship with them. That is a massive advantage, and it will help you stand out from the crowd. Excel at customer service, and you will immediately differentiate yourselves from the bigger organizations that just can't handle customer service in quite the same way. Be flexible. You're small, so you can adapt, you can evolve, you can change, but you can also make decisions far more quickly and implement them because you haven't got a huge board of managing directors and trustees or whatever to kind of work through. If you want something to happen, you can make it happen like that, and that's a really powerful thing to have in your armory. So you can be far more flexible and far more quick and far more efficient at bringing in new things. And then pricing. You're small, so you can be competitive on price because your overheads aren't so big. You don't need to charge what some of your competitors have to charge just to cover their overheads. You can also work with great clients who've got big budgets but simply won't pay the fees of your competitors. We've won some great work by people, this year with people who will not pay the astronomical fees of our clients, but still have really big budgets. So think about how can you add value to your potential clients in a way that your larger competitors can't. It's all about adding value, being flexible, being great at customer service, caring for the people that you work with. And then competing, you will win some, you will lose some. We've won big this year. There's also a couple of projects that we've lost. One particular one that springs to mind is a design agency we were up against. Really, we probably put in the best bid ever, but they've got 10 creative people all pooling their ideas, and their work was amazing. And I just can't compete with that. So win and some you'll lose. But the trick is to believe that you can punch above your weight. Just because you are small doesn't mean your clients have to be small too. We're working now with bigger businesses and bigger agencies than ever before because we're playing to our strengths. We are punching above our weight because of the people that we work with and the communication streams that we've been kind of worked really hard on. And it will get tough, and when it does, keep the main thing the main thing. Do what you love doing and be passionate. Passion is really underrated. It's got to you. If you're passionate, people will respond to that. But it's also about staying focused. Don't get distracted by new strategies, new systems. Keep the main thing the main thing. Do what you love doing and keep the faith. It's not always easy. We know that. There are peaks and troughs at every business, but persevere, stick to your plan. build a support network to help advise and encourage and believe that you can compete and you can win. So in summary, I just kind of want to offer a really simple quote that I hope will kind of frame everything and possibly put a smile on your face. If you want to punch well above your weight, don't be big, be great. Someone told me that, and that's really stuck with me. So if you want to punch well above your weight, don't be big, be great. So thank you very much for listening. Hope that's been of use. My name is Stuart Avis, Audacious Creative Designs that make a difference. So if you have any questions, then it'll be good to talk about them now. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Stuart. That was great. You've got a few questions coming through. Are you ready? Right, the first one is from Laura, and she asks, how important is it really to know who my competition is?
I think it's really important to understand who your competition is, mostly because actually you can then do a little bit of research, with a little bit of digging about the amount of people that work with them. You can begin to make a lot of assumptions about that, but also you can know that actually there are sort of 4 or 5 other similar businesses in your area, and maybe an opportunity to actually work together on some things as well. So I think it is really important to just kind of really know who your competitors are, because otherwise you can't plan and you can't strategize properly.
Okay, thank you. I hope that helps. The next question is from Steve, and he says, you talked about customer profile. What is it and what does it consist of? Can you expand a little, please?
Okay, perfect customer profile is something that I was made to do by my marketing coach several years ago. And it basically is a profile of your ideal client. So I had to sit down and say, well, who is my ideal client? What space do they inhabit? What do they look like? So for me, it would be how many employees, what industry are they in? What sort of sector, what sort of, for minor charities, well, what element in the charitable sector, how many employees, what's their turnover, is it geographic, is it national, what's their mission, all those kind of things. Really drill down into who your ideal client is. So find the people that you work best with, that I want to work with more of them, what are the common denominators, and then work down from there. It's not always easy, and you will keep on finding, I'm probably version 19 or 20 by now, but every week I still go back to these are the people I want to work with, and more and more and more we are working with those kinds of people. It might be, but equally it might be a personality type. I want to work with passionate people. I want to work with accountants. I want to work with, so there are lots of different ways that actually you can specify who your ideal client is. But just kind of be quite, the more specific you are, the better that profile will be.
Okay, thank you. Another question has come through, and they ask, what role does creative design play in my overall growth strategy?
It's a good one. It's a tricky one. Obviously, as a creative designer, I think it's critical, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be expensive, because I mean, just think of some of the really great logos that are out there. They're actually often very simple, and but they have intention behind them. So whatever your creative is, it needs to be intentional. It needs to, why have you chosen the colors that you've chosen? Why have you gone for that font? What does that mean? Because your creative has to kind of play a part in helping people understand why you are what you do, why you are who you are. And so I think creative design, just like I use those images, those 3 photos, they're really, really important, and they play a very big role in helping people understand the personalities of the business. So I think creative design is really important, but it needs to be intentional more than anything else, I think. Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Following on from that, Liz has asked, you're using some great images in your presentation. Where can I get some good images from myself?
I get all my images, or 98% of them, through an online stock house called Shutterstock. There's iStock as well. There's Graphic Stock. There's loads of them out there. I get Shutterstock because I think they've got a really good range of images, and they're not as expensive as iStock. and I rarely have a problem kind of finding the image that I want. But if you're looking for specific images, food for instance, then there are some really good niche stock houses. So we're doing some work at the moment for a hotel, and we've sourced them a load of images of great food. So steaks and sandwiches and cream teas and chocolate brownies and all sorts to illustrate their menu. So there are niche photo stock houses as well. Those photos will be more expensive and may well have restrictions on them. So that's the other thing is if you're going to use a stock image, make sure that it's royalty free, which it will be, it's proper stock image, but also there are no restrictions. Don't use Google. I had a client recently who was given some images by her original web designer. She didn't know they were sourced from Google Images, and she was contacted by Getty Images. She said, "You've been using some of our images." She had to pay £2,000 in royalties back to them, and it nearly killed her business. So just be really careful where you get your images from, and if someone gives you one, just make sure that it's sourced properly, okay? Because I wouldn't want you to get in the same problem that my client had. We then helped her through that, and we got her some great images. So just be careful. It is a bit of a minefield out there.
Wow. Okay, you've got another question come from Paul. What role does pricing play in helping me win new potential customers?
That's a great question. It can help, but it can also hinder. You need to be comfortable with your pricing strategy. I have been guilty in the past for most of my business life of undervaluing my offering, and that's just my confidence thing, and it's also it's kind of not really understanding the value that my clients placed on the work I did for them. So I've kind of had to go through a bit of a journey myself with that. But I think one of the things that really, a couple of things that really stand in my mind is when I first launched a business, I had the opportunity to quote for a really big piece of work in the local council. And I went in, I got to the last two, and I did my pitch, and I then found out that I didn't get the work. And I was speaking afterwards, I got some feedback, and the lady said this, that we preferred your creative, but the other company was far more expensive. And that kind of floored me, because actually they went with the more expensive company almost because of the prestige of working with that agency. I'm not sure. So sometimes you can pitch for something and you can be really competitive, but business are always going to go for the most expensive regardless. So it doesn't always kind of play a role, but equally there are agencies out there that will charge 10 times what you charge. We put a quote in recently for a company for a 5-page WordPress website. One of the quotes they got back was for £25,000 for something that it's just monumental. I mean, we charged 3, which is still a really good piece of work for us, and actually we got the work because the company wasn't able to. Well, they want to pay £25,000 for a 5-page website, so it can help. But whatever your pricing strategy is, be comfortable with it, and don't undervalue how much you charge. Don't undervalue what you bring to your clients, and test the water. Sometimes, I've put up a price a little bit sometimes and tested it, and sometimes people have gone for it and it's gone, oh great, well I can begin to charge that. So be confident and don't be afraid actually of charging a little bit more as well, but equally just be a little bit flexible with that as well. I don't know if that helps, but there you go.
Okay, thank you. I think that's the last question for you. Okay, so thank you so much, Stuart, for joining me this afternoon and hosting today's webinar.
Your pleasure.
I will be sending out a copy of the presentation and also Stuart's contact details. So if you do have any questions for him, then he'll be delighted to receive them.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we hope you make the Lunch and Learn webinars a regular slot in your calendar every Tuesday at 12:30. And Stuart and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Take care, guys.